There are moments in life when we sense that something is shifting. Opportunities start coming our way. Things begin falling into place, and we feel a stirring in our spirit. That's not a coincidence. That's God opening new doors. But the challenge is that sometimes we don't recognize it. We hesitate, we second guess, and we wonder if it's really from God. That's why it's important to know the signs. When God opens a new door, it won't always be obvious. It may not come the way you expected or at the time you had planned. But when you understand how God moves, you'll recognize the signs and have the confidence to walk through the door He is opening for you. Sometimes in life, you're not looking for a change. You're not trying to make anything happen. But suddenly, new opportunities start coming your way. You weren't searching for a new job, but someone reaches out with an offer. You weren't planning on meeting anyone, but the right person crosses your path. You weren't even thinking about starting that business, but doors begin opening. Resources show up, and everything aligns perfectly. That's not a coincidence. That's God directing your steps, positioning you for something greater. When God is ready to take you into a new season, you don't have to go chasing after opportunities. Opportunities will find you. You don't have to struggle, manipulate, or force things to happen. The right doors will open at the right time. That's how He works. He brings the right people, the right connections, and the right resources when you need them. You may not see how it's all going to come together, but God has already orchestrated everything behind the scenes. Think about how David's life changed in an instant. He was out in the fields, tending sheep, minding his own business, when suddenly the prophet Samuel showed up at his house looking for the next king. David wasn't campaigning for the position. He wasn't trying to prove himself. He was just being faithful where he was. But at the right time, the opportunity came knocking. He didn't have to go looking for it. God brought it to him. That's the beauty of divine opportunity. When God opens a door, it won't be something you have to struggle to make happen. You won't have to beg people to give you a chance. You won't have to compromise who you are just to fit into a situation. What God has for you will come to you naturally, effortlessly, and in His perfect timing. The key is to stay faithful where you are. David could have complained about being overlooked, about being stuck in the fields while his brothers were in the house, but he didn't let that discourage him. He kept doing his best, and at the right time, his opportunity found him. In the same way, when you stay faithful, when you keep honoring God, when you keep doing the right thing, doors will open for you that you never saw coming. Some people spend their whole lives chasing opportunities, running from one thing to the next, trying to force things to happen. But when you trust God, you don't have to chase opportunities. Opportunities will chase you. The right people, the right moments, the right promotions, they will find you. So don't get discouraged if things aren't moving as fast as you'd like. Don't think you have to make everything happen on your own. Just stay faithful, keep believing, and watch how God brings the right opportunities to your doorstep, opening doors you never imagined possible. There are times in life when you start feeling unsettled. The things that once made you happy don't bring you the same joy. The job that you once loved now feels routine. The friendships that used to be fulfilling seem distant. It's not that anything is wrong. It's just that something inside of you is shifting. You can't quite explain it, but deep down you know that you're meant for more. That's not just a random feeling. It's not you being ungrateful or discontent. That's a sign that God is preparing you for something new. When it's time for a new season, He will often make you uncomfortable where you are. He will stir something inside of you that causes you to long for more, to dream bigger, to believe for greater things. That restlessness isn't a bad thing. It's a divine signal. It means He's getting ready to move you forward, to take you to another level. Think about a baby in the womb. For months, that baby is growing, being nourished, perfectly content. Everything it needs is right there. But at some point, it starts to get uncomfortable. It starts to push, to move, to shift. The space that was once comfortable now feels restrictive. Why? Because it's time for something new. The baby doesn't understand what's happening, but the discomfort is a sign that it's time for a transition. If it stayed where it was, it would never grow into its full potential. The same thing happens to us. There are seasons when God allows us to feel uncomfortable, not to frustrate us, but to prepare us. He's stretching us, getting us ready for what's next. Maybe you've been feeling that lately. You don't have the same passion for your job. You feel a pull to step into something greater. You know there's more inside of you, but you're not sure what's next. That's not something to ignore. That's a sign that God is shifting you into a new season. When the time comes for something new, you can't stay where you are and expect to grow. You can't hold on to the familiar just because it's comfortable. What once felt right will start to feel out of place. It's God's way of nudging you forward. Look at Moses. He grew up in Pharaoh's palace. He had the best education, the best clothes, the best food. But one day, he started to feel restless. He couldn't enjoy the palace the way he used to. Something inside of him told him he was meant for more. He was called to be a deliverer, but at first, all he felt was restlessness. That was God stirring something inside of him, preparing him for His true purpose. That's how God works. He will allow you to be uncomfortable in one season so that you don't miss the next. If Moses had ignored that feeling, if he had just stayed where it was easy, he would have never fulfilled his destiny. Maybe you've been trying to push that feeling aside. You keep telling yourself, I should be happy. I should be grateful. Everything is fine. But something still doesn't feel right. That's because you weren't meant to stay in the same place forever. Growth requires change. Moving into the new often means leaving behind what's familiar. The key is to trust the process. God will never stir something in you without having a plan for you. He doesn't put a dream in your heart and then leave you on your own. He doesn't make you restless just to frustrate you. That stirring is a sign that He's about to open a new door. The challenge is that when you feel this restlessness, it's easy to get discouraged. You may think, why am I feeling this way? Why don't I enjoy this anymore? But instead of fighting it, see it for what it is. A divine signal that something new is coming. Instead of feeling stuck, start preparing. Instead of getting discouraged, get excited. That discomfort means a shift is on the way. But here's the key. You have to be willing to step out in faith. Too often, people feel the restlessness. They sense that God is shifting them, but they resist the change because they're afraid. They're comfortable where they are, even if they know it's not where they're meant to stay. Imagine a bird in a nest. When it's young, that nest is warm, safe, and comfortable. But at some point, the mother bird starts making the nest uncomfortable. She stirs it up, removes the soft feathers, makes it harder to stay. Why? Because if she didn't, the bird would never learn to fly. If it stayed in the nest forever, it would never discover the heights it was created for. God stirs your nest. He makes where you are uncomfortable so that you don't get stuck. He's pushing you to spread your wings, to take that step of faith, to step into the new season He has prepared. So if you've been feeling that restlessness, don't ignore it. Don't push it aside. It's a sign that God is about to do something new in your life. Start preparing. Start believing, start expecting. What once felt right may not feel right anymore, but that's okay. That means God is getting you ready for something greater. When you embrace the shift, when you trust that God is leading you, you'll step into things you never imagined. You'll see doors open that you never expected. You'll realize that the discomfort wasn't there to push you away. It was there to push you forward. This is your time. God is moving. Get ready to step into the new. There are moments in life when everything seems to be shifting. You look around and the things that once worked don't seem to fit anymore. The people you used to be close to are moving in a different direction. The job that once brought you joy now feels unfulfilling. You sense that something is changing, but you don't know exactly what it is. That's not something to ignore. That's a sign that God is preparing you for something new. When He's about to open a new door, He will often make the old door uncomfortable. He won't let you stay where you are forever because He has something greater ahead. What used to satisfy you won't satisfy you anymore. What used to make sense won't make sense anymore. It's not because you're doing something wrong, it's because you're being prepared for the next level. This is how divine transitions work. Before you step into the new, you often go through a season of restlessness. It's like a gentle nudge from God saying, get ready. Something greater is coming. That's why you can't settle where you are. You weren't meant to stay in the same place forever. Growth requires movement, and movement requires change. Think about a baby eagle in the nest. When it's young, the nest is comfortable. It's warm, it's safe, it has everything it needs. But at some point, the mother eagle begins stirring up the nest. She removes the soft feathers, making it rough and uncomfortable. The baby eagle doesn't understand why things aren't as easy as they used to be. It doesn't know that the discomfort is necessary for its growth. If the nest stayed comfortable, the eagle would never leave. And if it never left, it would never learn to fly. The same thing happens to us. Sometimes the reason things aren't as fulfilling as they used to be is that we're not supposed to stay there anymore. The reason you feel unsettled is because God is pushing you into something greater. If you're feeling that shift, don't fight it. Don't try to hold on to something that's no longer meant for you. That restlessness is a sign that new doors are about to open. One of the ways you'll know the door is opening is that the obstacles that were once in your way suddenly start moving. Things that were difficult before now become easier. That job that seemed impossible to get suddenly falls into place. The resources you couldn't find before suddenly show up. That legal situation that had been dragging on for years suddenly gets resolved. When God is ready to take you to the next level, nothing can stop Him. What was once a struggle will become effortless. What seemed impossible will suddenly work out. That's because when God opens a door, no one can shut it. Think about the Israelites. For years, they were stuck in slavery. Pharaoh refused to let them go. It seemed like they would never be free. But one day, everything shifted. Plague after plague came, and suddenly, Pharaoh's heart changed. What had been denied for years was granted in an instant. The door that had been shut suddenly opened, and they walked out into freedom. That's how divine timing works. When it's time, things will fall into place. The opportunities will come. The right people will show up. And what you once had to push for will start coming naturally. The key is to trust the process and not get discouraged in the waiting. Some people give up too soon. They let the frustration of the in-between season keep them from stepping into the new. But just because you don't see anything happening doesn't mean God isn't working. Just because the door hasn't opened yet doesn't mean it's not about to. Right before the door opens, it will feel like everything is against you. The enemy will try to discourage you, make you doubt, make you feel like it's never going to happen. That's because He knows what's on the other side of that door. He knows that if you stay in faith, if you keep believing, you're about to step into something powerful. That's why you have to hold on. Keep trusting, keep declaring, keep expecting. The same God who opened doors before will do it again. If He removed obstacles for others, He will remove them for you. If He brought breakthroughs in the past, He will bring them again. The key is to stay ready. If you know that God is about to open a new door, start preparing for it. If you're believing for a new job, start developing your skills. If you're waiting for the right relationship, start working on becoming the best version of yourself. If you're praying for a breakthrough in your finances, start handling what you have with excellence. When the door opens, you don't want to be caught unprepared. The eagle doesn't just jump out of the nest one day and fly perfectly. It's been strengthening its wings, getting ready for the moment it takes off. In the same way, your preparation will determine how high you soar. So don't get discouraged by the discomfort. Don't be frustrated by the delays. If you feel restless, if you see obstacles moving, if things that once fit no longer do, pay attention. Those are signs that something new is coming. That feeling of restlessness, that sense of something stirring in your spirit isn't a sign that you should give up. It's a sign that you're on the verge of stepping into a new season. Too often people ignore these signs, thinking they're just going through a phase. But that uneasiness isn't random. It's a divine signal that God is moving you toward something new. When it's time for a shift, doors that were once closed start opening. The people who once ignored you suddenly take notice. The job that seemed impossible to get is now within reach. The dream that felt so far away is now closer than ever. That's not a coincidence. That's a sign that the right door is about to open. But here's the key. When new doors open, you have to be willing to walk through them. Too many people stay stuck in the familiar because it feels safe. They know deep down that God is calling them to something greater, but they're afraid of the unknown. Don't let fear keep you from your destiny. When God opens a door, it's not up to you to figure out all the details. It's not up to you to have all the answers. Your job is to take a step of faith and trust that what's ahead is better than what's behind. Think about Peter. He and the disciples were in a boat in the middle of a storm when they saw Jesus walking on water. Peter could have stayed in the boat where it was safe. He could have let fear keep him from stepping into something miraculous. But when Jesus told him to come, he stepped out. And as long as he kept his eyes on Jesus, he did something impossible. He walked on water. That's what happens when you have the courage to step through the door that God is opening. You'll find yourself doing things you never thought possible. You'll walk in favor you didn't earn. You'll see opportunities that you never could have created on your own. But before you step into the new, you'll often see another sign. Obstacles that once stood in your way will start to move. Things that were difficult before suddenly become easier. The loan that wouldn't go through before now gets approved. The opposition that was holding you back suddenly disappears. That's because when God is making a way, nothing can stand against Him. No person, no mistake, no setback, no delay. When it's time for your new season, everything will line up exactly as it should. Think about the Israelites. They had been enslaved in Egypt for years, with Pharaoh refusing to let them go. But when the time came for their deliverance, nothing could stop it. Pharaoh changed his mind. The Red Sea parted. The very thing that seemed impossible became a reality. When God says it's time, things will shift in ways you never imagined. The doors that were locked will swing open. The people who rejected you will call you back. The path that seemed blocked will clear. That's why you have to stay in faith even when you don't see things happening right. The biggest battle happens right before the breakthrough. The enemy will try to discourage you, making you think nothing is changing, that you're wasting your time, that it's never going to happen. But don't fall for those lies. That's just a sign that you're closer than ever. Another way you'll know a new door is opening is that the right people will start showing up. You don't have to go chasing after opportunities. Opportunities will find you. The connections, the resources, the relationships you need will align at just the right time. Look at Ruth. She lost her husband, left her home, and ended up in a foreign land with nothing. She could have given up, but she kept believing. And at the right time, she just so happened to be working in the field of a man named Boaz, who would later become her husband. That wasn't luck, that was a divine appointment. You don't have to strive or stress trying to figure everything out. If you stay faithful, the right doors will open at the right time. The right people will find you. The right opportunities will come to you. You have to recognize when a season is over. Sometimes we hold on to things that were never meant to be permanent. We keep trying to fit in places we've outgrown. We keep pursuing relationships that God has already removed. Don't let nostalgia keep you from your destiny. Just because something was right for a season doesn't mean it's right forever. There comes a time when you have to say, I'm grateful for what was, but I know God has something better ahead. You weren't meant to stay in the same place forever. Growth requires change, and change requires movement. When you feel that restlessness, when obstacles start moving, when the right people begin showing up, recognize that it's not random, it's a divine setup. So don't shrink back. Don't let fear keep you stuck. When the door opens, have the courage to walk through it. What's on the other side is greater than anything you could have imagined. The favor, the opportunity, the new level of blessing, it's all waiting for you. Stay in faith, stay expectant, and when the right door opens, step into it with confidence. Your new season is here. There are moments in life when you can feel something shifting. You may not see it with your physical eyes, but deep down, you know a change is coming. The things that once felt comfortable now feel unfamiliar. The doors that used to be open now seem closed. The relationships that once fit so naturally now feel distant. That's not a mistake. That's a sign that God is doing something new. One of the ways you know a new door is about to open is when the old doors start closing. It can be unsettling when things that once worked so well suddenly don't. Maybe that job that used to be fulfilling now feels empty. Maybe the friendships that were once so strong are now fading. Maybe the place where you felt so at home now seems like it's not where you belong anymore. That's not something to resist. That's something to recognize. When God is shifting you, He will often make the old place uncomfortable because He doesn't want you to stay stuck where you don't belong. Think about a caterpillar. It crawls on the ground for most of its life, but there comes a time when it enters a cocoon. In that cocoon, everything changes. The old form of life ends so that something greater can emerge. If the caterpillar refuses to let go of what was, it will never experience what could be. Sometimes you have to let go of what's familiar to step into what's greater. Another sign that new doors are opening is when obstacles that once blocked you start to move. There are some things in life that no amount of effort or striving can change. You've tried everything, done all you could, yet nothing seemed to shift. But then, seemingly out of nowhere, things start lining up. The person who wouldn't give you a chance now suddenly wants to help. The finances you couldn't seem to find now show up unexpectedly. The opportunity that felt out of reach now seems possible. That's not luck. That's a divine shift. When it's your time, no person, no situation, no opposition can stand in the way of what God has planned for you. What was once a struggle will suddenly become easy. The doors that were closed for years will swing wide open. You won't have to force it. You won't have to manipulate it. It will simply be God's favor making a way where there was no way. Think about Joseph. He was sold into slavery by his own brothers, falsely accused, thrown into prison. For years, nothing seemed to be going his way. But when the time was right, in a single day, he was lifted from the prison to the palace. He didn't have to fight for it, push for it, or make it happen on his own. When the right door opens, everything will fall into place at the right time. Another way you know God is opening a new door is when the right people start showing up. You don't have to chase after opportunities. You don't have to beg people to support you. When it's your time, the right connections, the right relationships, the right resources will find you. God will align you with people who see your potential, people who believe in you, people who can take you to the next level. Look at David. He was just a shepherd boy, overlooked by everyone. But at the right time, God sent Samuel to anoint him as king. He didn't have to campaign for it, try to impress people, or convince anyone he was the right choice. God brought the right person into his life to open the right door at the right time. When you're in alignment with God's plan, you won't have to force relationships, strive for approval, or beg for support. What's meant for you will come to you. But here's the key. When the door opens, you have to be willing to walk through it. Too many people hesitate. They let fear keep them stuck in the familiar. They make excuses about why they're not ready, why it's not the right time, why they're not qualified. If you wait until you feel ready, you'll never step into what's next. Think about Peter. When he saw Jesus walking on the water, he had a choice. He could stay in the boat where it was safe, or he could step out in faith. The boat was comfortable, the boat was familiar, but the miracle wasn't in the boat, the miracle was in stepping out. As long as Peter kept his eyes on Jesus, he walked on water. He did something impossible because he was willing to take a step of faith. The same is true for you. If you stay where it's comfortable, you'll miss what God has for you. If you keep holding on to the past, you won't be able to receive what's ahead. If you keep doubting yourself, waiting for the perfect moment, you'll let opportunities pass you by. You have everything you need to step into this next season. The door is open. It's time to walk through it. Maybe you've been afraid to leave the job that no longer fulfills you. Maybe you've been holding on to a relationship that you know isn't right. Maybe you've been putting off stepping into that dream, waiting for everything to be perfect. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to take the first step. When you do, you'll see doors open that you never could have opened on your own. You'll see provision come in ways you never expected. You'll see the right people showing up at the right time. That's how you know this is your season. That's how you know God is doing something new. So don't let fear hold you back. Don't stay stuck in what's familiar just because it's comfortable. The old doors are closing because better doors are opening. The obstacles are moving because new opportunities are coming. The right people are showing up because this is your moment to step into something greater. What's ahead is far better than what's behind. Your best days are still in front of you. The right door is already open. Now it's time for you to step through it. When God is opening new doors in your life, you don't have to force it, strive for it, or worry about how it will happen. What is meant for you will not pass you by. The closed doors, the delays, the disappointments, They were never meant to stop you. They were part of the process, preparing you for something greater. When the right door opens, you will see things fall into place in ways you never expected. The right opportunities, the right people, the right moments will align perfectly. Your job is to stay in faith, trust the process, and be ready to step forward when the time comes. Don't let fear keep you in the past. Don't hold on to what's comfortable just because it's familiar. The best is yet to come, and what's ahead is far greater than what's behind. Walk in confidence, knowing that what God has planned for you is filled with favor, purpose, and divine opportunity. The right door is already open. Now it's time for you to step through it.